How's everybody doing? There we go. I always have to adjust the music. I don't know why it doesn't just save where I leave the settings. Assume Sam, hey. All right, so where did we leave things? I guess we leave things with we're on storage. So middle of this week we had open hours, kind of went over where we're at with things, as well as a great presentation. And as part of it, we talked about some stuff, including kind of like an upcoming roadmap. And part of the roadmap deliverables is delivering this new storage container implementation by the end of next month. So, which is basically 5 weeks away. So we got to get cracking. So I got to get back on this. And the reason that's important is because we do really need a good solution that works across platforms. You know, in the open hours, we talked about the fact that we now have Switch 2 support officially in there, and we've technically had Switch 2 support since Stardew Valley shipped on Switch 2. Like, what was it, like last December or something like that, if I remember correctly? I forget exactly when it was. Thank you. Yes, I like my Jeff shirt. It's not vintage, it just looks vintage. I mean, it's vintage because it wore out on my own watch, but, you know, I bought it maybe 5 years ago. So yeah, it's important because you need to have a storage solution that you can count on working across platforms and not having to implement a different one when you go to platforms like Switch or Switch 2 or Xbox or PlayStation. So that's what's important about this implementation, is having something that you can count on that just works, especially for something as uninteresting and boring as storage. It should just do its job and not be a problem. There's just a lot of details with that. So let's get back to it. All right, let's share my screen. So unlike what I said last time, I didn't get a chance at all to work on this over the last couple days. It was exceedingly difficult to spend any time on it. We were kind of busy with different things in the studio, and just life gets in the way sometimes. So it made it difficult, but we're going to continue where we left off. So where we had left off was we had this native wrapper that was basically forwarding a lot of things to native code. Or it plans to forward a lot of things to native code. Let's see, where is all that stuff? It's in storage device and storage container. And some of it does make sense for it to do. But I think what we want to do is we kind of want to do some of this work. Yeah, save files are a pain. And if you've done console porting, you know that every platform treats them slightly differently and they have their own quirks and issues to deal with. So the idea here is that we should provide an implementation that kind of hides all those things for you. If anyone's ever worked on PlayStation and seen, or not worked on PlayStation, but played a PlayStation game and seen messages if your save data was corrupted and things like that, those are all things that you have to implement. And those are requirements. And those are some of the things I'd like to also make sure that we handle those platform requirements for you in a reasonable, generic way that makes it simple to port and makes it to where if you use this, it just functions, it passes certification, you don't need to worry about these things, instead of it being kind of up to you. Like even with Unity, you know, you kind of have to jump through all the hoops to make platform compatible saves, which seems kind of dumb. You would think that there would be a built-in support for this that would work, and there just isn't. And it's because it's a hard problem. So I'm committed to finishing the hard problem in 5 weeks. So we'll see how that works out. So let's get back to this. So the issue that I had here when I was looking at it last, and some of these things make sense. These are fine to go to native code. It's in here that it starts to get crazy. Like, there's a caching that we kind of want to do here. We don't want it to how you want to do your storage is you don't want to actually write to the storage device until the commit occurs. So when this occurs, this is when we actually write. That's where we actually want to write. So there are two ways to approach that. Some people approach it by writing temp files, but I feel like that's just introducing another failure point, potentially. It requires you to have double the space and all that. I prefer to use memory. If you can't keep your save data in memory, then you have a problem with your save data, because it should be able to fit into memory. So I think that's what we actually want to do, which means that this backend can't just write it to disk, and I don't think we want the command to do all this work at the native code level, because it's kind of unnecessary. It's all kind of just mashing around bytes and storing things. It could do that at the C# level and then use the native level to actually do the flush, the actual commit. Like, this is the place where I think it would actually call platform code. Some of these things, like, where is that even used? Container name, sanitized file name. We'll have to look back into this, because this is the thing that we identified that this was a little bit off last time. Or where do you find that? Damn it, I forgot where I had that link. Found like the XNA docs for this stuff. There we go. We had to hunt down for these things. Is it the right place? Yeah. So I think this would be the newest one. It's not in there. Well, I find this so hard to navigate. It's all the repeated words. XNA framework, XNA framework, XNA framework, XNA framework. It's like, just get rid of that part. We know it's the XNA framework. It's all the fucking XNA framework. It drives me nuts when people repeat the same thing over and over again for no fucking reason. It makes it hard to follow. Okay. So what we found was that we had to modify this a little bit, because the concept that it had before, was probably not the best idea. Oh no, where is it? Because it wasn't. No, it was on create container, wasn't it? I think this is internal, so that doesn't really matter. But name of the title, container name, and that comes from device. Begin open container. Yeah, so it was passing in what it thought was the display name. And I was saying that separating those two concepts is probably not a bad idea. Display name and container name. I mean, could you create a display name from a container name? You could. And the problem is keeping it separate. Is that in platforms we have to either store that extra piece of data or something. It could be that the container name is a filtered version of the display name. It just doesn't make it very like, it can't be the same thing, because when you enumerate, let's say, like when you say, hey, show me all, where is it? It's in, no, not in there, it's in device. Maybe it's not in device. You didn't miss much. I don't think. Say storage devices can have a way to enumerate containers. That's interesting. I thought it did. Is it maybe in the container class? See, that further cements that it's not a display name. You could call it a display name when you create the container. Like, if... Where is it here? Display name. A constant human readable string that names the file. See, I wonder what Xbox is doing under the hood here, but they must be obviously mashing this name into something else, because I doubt that if you put Japanese characters in it that it's going to work for storage on disk. Also, it means that you need to know what that name is. So like if you have a container that is, I mean, I guess they're trying to say, well, you should have well-known containers and your name should be what you expected. Save slot 1, you know. I assume it's not going to be localized, because then your code has to look for localized names. I mean, this should just be the container name. The container name should be an identifier. It should not be a display name. The display name needs to be something separate. That's just what has to happen for this to actually make sense, I think. You know, and I don't mind, you know, the more I mess with this, the more it feels like I need to diverge further from what they're defining this as. It doesn't make sense to keep with this standard, because it's just not going to work. It can be similar, but it shouldn't be the same. It just can't be the same. And then that makes me wonder, is this a good design at all? And I think it is. I mean, this should really be like open or create. And it's really what it does, it's not called that. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to find the right way to fit it in, but diverge is the right way to go with this. Anyways. We'll deal with this later, but I think we might need to consider whether the container name has to have limits on what it is. Like, I think this is returned, isn't it? Yeah, like... That should not be display name. Reasonable. Name of the title now. Yeah. If we want display names, we're going to have to keep them separate. And that means storing some metadata for the container, which is not the end of the world, and gives us some niceties out of it. Some things that, you know, I think people would like to have. Okay, so that's fine. This is not going to do anything for right now. We need to evaluate whether this makes sense or not. That's the idea there. So what needs to happen here is all these operations, all these create operations, basically creates, deletes, adds, all of them should be working in memory and only flush on commit. Could have sworn I had an implementation of this already. Let me double check here real quick. God damn it. Had to plug my mouse in because it was running out of juice, and I have the world's thickest USB cable hooked up to it. I'm messing with it in here, maybe. No, that's Dean's old implementation there. I thought I had an implementation of this, but maybe I totally lost it. Who knows? It's fine. It's fine. Who cares? I'm going to implement it here, but it really should be in an independent location at some point. Maybe I should implement it in here. As part of the generic implementation. Yeah, let's do that, because it's going to be shared on all the platforms. Yeah, I don't know about any of this stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to store, fuck you. Yeah, I don't want to do that. To let's call it blob. We're going to say this is the cache. Blob is going to have a name and a byte array. I'll leave it at that for right now. Okay. So stuff like this won't create a directory directly. I think, what did we do for that? I forgot what I did. I did, again, I remembered, I thought I did this once before. So, yeah, I think I stored just a is directory. Yeah, I think that's all I did, right? Yeah, I think so. All I did was basically I would sanitize the directory name, relative path of the directory to be created. So I would sanitize the directory name, and I would do, oh, what I did was this, what was it? let me just do, actually we don't want to do that. We don't want to do it that way. What we want to do is have like, I think what we need to do is we need to specify some what I think what we want to do is we want to enforce some very specific rules about file paths so that we can, so that it works across. It's not sanitized. What's the term that it, yeah, that's fine. Whatever. I'll replace backslashes with forward slashes because we need to keep it a certain way. We are not going to be path sensitive or case sensitive because that's always a hell. You don't want case sensitive file names even in your storage. So we're going to make it to, we're going to tool lower the thing. Yeah. And, you know, we should be trying to avoid, this is more of an assert thing. I think we should be asserting on characters outside the ASCII range that we don't want to allow for paths. Because there's certain platforms that only allow ASCII as characters for paths. And I think that we would maintain that. And it's probably makes sense. I mean, I'm not a foreign developer, so I can't say whether something like that is an annoyance to like a Japanese developer or to a developer in a Scandinavian country where it's a lot of characters. Well, I guess those characters are within the ASCII realm. Well, some of them. So yeah, I don't know for sure if that's a big pain in the ass or it's just a pain they learn to live with. We'll solicit, you know, suggestions on that at some point. I can just do this. Actually, I can do cache get value path. If we want to do false, then we want to go data equals new blob data. Now, I don't know. Do I need the name here? I guess I still need the, well, I don't know if I need the name. I think that might be something I actually don't need. Yeah, I think that's what we want to do. I think I also need to mark it dirty. I don't need name. How do we know if we're deleting the directory? I'll have to think a little bit more about it. I mean, I hate to put an enum state in there, put something like should delete or something like that, but yeah, it's starting to look horrifying, but I don't know. I think it's messy, but we'll see what happens. Kind of experimenting at the moment. So it should only be marked dirty here. It already existed here. They call create on the same directory twice. Carson825, hello. We're working on writing kind of a storage layer for save data for multiple platforms, and want to write it as a cache in memory, and then it flushes. So I'm kind of working out the details of that, even though I totally feel like I did this once before. That's okay. So I guess if you call create directory twice, it should ignore the second one, not try to create it a second time. So if it's here, it's either already been created and you don't need to worry about it. If it's there, and if it's this still feels flimsy. We'll see. In creation of a file will work in a similar way. It's not a directory, it is dirty. We're going to return a stream that fills it out. I think I wrote, well, what we want is a stream that when it's closed assigns itself back to that. You know what? I think that's what I did before, is I didn't have a byte array. I had a byte stream, or a, I did that. So that you could do,
frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
and then you would, if it does exist, if it's deleted, mark it as not deleted. Either way, we're returning a, guess if you're going to create the file, it expects it to be, almost everybody's going to expect it to be at the beginning of the file. So it needs to let's seek to the beginning, and we're going to return the that was horrible. I don't know why I decided that that would be the way to do that. Data's not a good name either. Content seems like a better name for that. So it returns an open memory stream to work on. It needs to reopen it though, I think, because it's Because I mean, I guess what happens when you close a memory stream? I don't know what close on a memory stream actually does. I guess I can just do that. I don't need to seek, really. I think close on a memory stream doesn't do anything. I'll have to experiment with that and see. If anybody knows, let me know. Yeah, I think that's what they're going to expect. I think we need to clear the file, whatever it is. You know, I wonder if... Yeah, I think it should throw away the memory stream. Because otherwise, you end up with remaining data. If you stop, it's going to write the size is wrong, all that stuff. If there was I don't think there's like a reset on a memory stream. And I guess you could set capacity back to 0, maybe. Let me ask, do you reset? Let's see if a little AI search will tell me what the right answer is for that. Okay, yeah, maybe that's better. So what we really want to do is here, we want to just do set length 0. We need to also do content. Maybe, but set length for sure. And then that'll reset the stream. Returns a stream that you can read and write to, and whatever's in that stream, if you leave it open, then hit commit, all bets are off what you're going to get. Don't do silly things. Yeah, this is working okay, I think. Okay, delete the directory is sort of like this. Get the same path. Okay. If it does not equal that, nothing to do return. Otherwise, it's dirty. Mark it as dirty. Mark it as needs to be deleted. Pending delete is really what it is. I'll rename it later. There'll be an interesting thing that happens. That what happens if you pass in a directory name and it happens to be the same name as a file name? How does it know the difference? And I know how it knows the difference. How it knows the difference is you want it to end with that. That's all you can really do. So we're just going to always end directory paths with a slash that'll identify it as a directory. So it's a unique entry in the thing. Those won't end in paths, slashes, so that'll work. This is only caching stuff into the state. It's not been committed. Delete file works kind of the same here. Freeze the content, marks it as deleted, marks it as dirty. Directory exists, it's the same as this. And all these are kind of resulting to the same memory operations essentially. I mean, actually it shouldn't do that. It needs to do this. I mean, there's a question here of like, yeah, this is what we want to do. Yeah, if it exists and it's not deleted, then it exists. If it's a path in there, it's not deleted. Same thing with files. I mean, there's one thing we're not handling yet, which is a whole other problem I need to look into next, which is well, maybe not. I mean, so what happens when you open a container that exists and you say file exists and there's nothing in this cache because it hasn't read anything yet? I mean, it needs to know to lazily update this cache. It's basically where it needs to be able to say, hey, gather everything that's on there and bring it in. Maybe not load all the data from memory. Yeah, we'll get there. Let's do this first pass first. Same thing. Get directory names. That will work strictly from cache. Yeah. Let's see what's the best way to do that. I mean, it's returning its own copy of the array. It can't return a cache one, so it has to allocate a new one. That's the only way to do that. It's not a very efficient API, huh? Doing that. Nothing ever defined, you know, how does that work? Does it return all of them in a flat list? Is it just the top level directory names? in the root. Oh, there's actually one that takes a pattern too. So it's only the root, which is interesting. I do wonder whether nested directories are useful or not. I mean, but it didn't return an enumerator. I mean, the function here didn't return an enumerator. It returned a list or an array, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's an array. The point is it returns a copy because it can't return one internally because, well, I guess you can't really change. No, you could assign things to that array, so you don't want it to do that. So it's returning a copy. It's not a very efficient way. That's fine. We can make it more efficient later, potentially. What I was debating is like, what do I return here? But I think, so this is what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do there. Otherwise, oh, this is where I was. I mean, it's fine for it to return it this way. It's going to return it lowercase and forward slashes, and that's fine. Like if you're writing to a file system that didn't have case, and then you get this case insensitive, let's say. Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess it returns in whatever case. It doesn't really care, and it's mixed, but it doesn't matter. They match, but it's fine. It's going to return it as lower, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. You can live with that problem, I think. Yeah, I'm just going to do this. We'll worry about the rest later. That seems like a reasonable thing to do here for now. Search pattern is just the same thing with a slightly different problem. Damn it. I need to find a way to do this search in a way that makes sense. I'm gonna do that for right now. I've seen something before. I'm not going to add any third-party libraries. I'm not going to add something that's only in .NET 9 and 10. There must be a simple approach to this that gets us something that we want. I mean, I would hate to use a regex, but we could. But there's got to be a simple way to do it. I think I've done this before, like in native code for some stuff to implement a mono backend, but I have to go look and see. But it's not important for right now. We'll get to it. Get file names, the same problem as this, but different. So yeah, same thing. Same thing here. Yeah. There's probably a very simple formula for doing a match like this that I can write as one helper function that can validate, and that'll be the simplest thing to do. It'll work fast and it'll be easy. But I'll get there eventually. So open file, this is opening an existing file. I mean, we'll get to, how that's supposed to work later. Let's go back up to our create file up here, because it kind of has the skeleton of what we need. So I think what's going to happen as far as what happens about getting the stuff that's on disk? I think what needs to happen is I think that there's a one-time, whenever you open a container, or the first time you reference a container, I think it should do an initial enumeration and read the content of the save data. At least it should read it should at least do an enumeration of files on disk so that it knows what's there. As far as reading the actual content of the files, that's questionable. I don't want to preload everything into memory unless we really need to. We could lazily do that part. Like if we don't have the file to content, go get it, and do that lazily. But it shouldn't on every open file or on every create file, it shouldn't be writing straight to disk. It's caching it. So we want to keep it in memory. So anyways, why is this not following the same rules here? Wait, really? I don't know if I like this. Is that what it did in the old API? A unshared file. What does unshared mean in this? With rewrite access is open in specified mode. So basically, open file can also be create file. It could be both. It can be create file with modes. This is starting to get into nonsense. I forget what the share access is. I've always thought this share thing was always ridiculous. I've never understood why there are 3 modes. Like file share read, but file access is, read write. It's like, what? It's confusing, and I really just don't like this concept. I mean, this might be a place where I'd break the API, because, I mean, I can see sort of the idea that, we want to write to the end of the file and continue the existing file. I mean, there's create new, create, open or create. Yeah. to me, open file is to read it. Create file is to create it. If we want to create file that truncates or it doesn't truncate the depends, we could do that. I mean, it's really not create and open. It's really like read file, write file is really what it is. This really is treated as an open, meaning I could read, I could write, I could do whatever. But I think I'll cut it off on this file access thing because we're not, because the writing is cached. We don't need to handle this. In fact, we'll always treat it as, and people shouldn't be writing to save storage at the same time as they're reading it. This is kind of written as like a generic file operation that, oh, I can read and write, and another thread could be reading this one while I'm writing that one. It's like, that's all nonsense. You don't need to do any of that junk. For save data, for sure, you don't need to do any of that junk. So yeah, I think that file mode is nonsense here. And file access is also nonsense. I'm sorry, file access and file shared is a nonsense. File mode might be okay, you know, if we want to support the extra creation modes. So yeah, that could be our limitation here. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do for now. We can revise this decision later. So it's all going to depend on mode. So if I'm just opening, actually, let's try to create a thing first. If I'm creating for file mode, I don't want it to throw an exception on if it already exists. I mean, if I want to do that, I mean, that seems like a shitty thing to do, but I don't know, let's see. I can probably do it, it's just a question of wait, which one was it that did that? It's file mode, create new. I mean, that's what it said, right? This seems silly. But it's part of like having this, and I don't know if that's important or not. Like how many people would actually care about having that functionality? I need to be able to call file open, and if I say create new and it already exists, I want to throw an exception. Instead of, you know, file exists. It exists, okay, don't create new. It just seems like we're complicating it. And I guess the original API probably threw exceptions for stuff like that. He doesn't talk what happens if you can't open it, but my guess is that it throws exceptions. It's probably related to this. Michael SRTTTTT. How are you doing? I'm doing okay. Just thinking about how this is going to work. Okay, so if I create an already exists truncate, is basically what it's saying. If not, I'm going to do that's what it's doing. If it exists, through an exception. Otherwise, create the file.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
What's a good way to describe truncate? I guess it's how they describe it. Because they don't describe it. It's just truncates the file. It's like, okay, but you didn't define what truncate means. They said it sets it to 0 bytes. So that's how they describe what truncate is. I mean, it was. If the file exists, it's a shitty description, I think, but default behavior is it truncates. And by doing this, I can now use this as a helper for the other function, essentially. If not, it's going to continue where it left off. So that makes that work. That's going to truncate. This is the same as that one, but just always overwrites. Our next mode. Create new. Should open a file if it exists. Otherwise, a new file should be created. So I assume this means, yeah. Okay, I think what this means is if this If it exists, do this. Otherwise, return Greek file name. See. One thing that might be wrong here is the ones that are set. Open file that isn't set to, I mean, I guess they're always set to read. It says that you can technically write to this file as well, but we're not setting those flags. But it's like, actually, we need to know, right? Because if they modify the file, we need to know that it was modified. Yeah. I mean, is there a... This is where it gets complicated. So you call open file with a file and return a stream. I guess we can't really know, like even if they open a file for reading, or they open a file for writing, and they don't write anything to it, or they open an existing file for writing and use append, we don't know if they actually wrote anything. We don't know if it actually changed. There's not a quick way to know that other than, a complex wrapping of a stream. I mean, memstream has no concept of, hey, was this modified? It'd be cool if it had it. I mean, I'd have to write kind of my own wrapper, which I could do. Kind of like a memstream that detects that on writes, it, says, okay, somebody wrote to it, so it's modified. Which might be what we really need to do if we want to be efficient, right? We also want to make sure that if you open a file for reading only, that it if you open a file for reading only, that it correctly enforces that. If you try to write to it, it shouldn't allow you. Which means my storage stream needs to enforce those rules by throwing an exception if you try to write to a file that's been set to read only. Yeah. So yeah, maybe I need my own wrapper there. I'm not going to dive into that yet, but we do need to dive into that. It also means that what we probably should do here is that axis. What is it? No, set that. Yeah, file axis. Just read, write, rewrite. So we do need this. I think by default, this might be why it had several overloads so that you could handle these cases. But really, if you're going to do this, I think it should do, they were trying to specify is that, well, it'll do the optimal thing depending on what you select here. Select open and exists, returns it for reading. It's not for writing. If you call create, it's going to specify it for reading and writing. create new, reading and writing, open or create. I assume it's going to be reading and writing because create's in there. Truncate's going to be, reading and writing. Append's going to be reading and writing. The only one that isn't reading and writing is open. All the other cases would open in read-write modes. Because it doesn't know what you're going to do. Truncate, you might read write. I guess create, you could technically open for write only. We'll get into this later. We can do something about that. I'm gonna keep going down this path and we'll see what else we find. So open or create. I mean, I guess I don't really need to, like, I'm kind of doing this, but I really don't need to, I guess. No, it probably should. Being lazy, I could really just say, hey, create a file and put it down there as a fallback. If it exists, then blob. That's more correct. So if it exists, then I'm just going to do I need to do the same thing that I did up here. Okay, what's left? Truncate. Which was it again? I guess if it doesn't exist, it should return a. I assume that's what it should do. All of them. Append. That's that case. And finally, we're left mode, which is open. could probably, all this could probably be written in a better way. I can see how I might need to write like a ton of unit tests to verify that this stuff all works. Like this is all complicated. Like an.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
That's sort of kind of working. And this is where it goes into the real work. Platform commit has to do the platform work that commits the cache. Basically, it's going to go through and flushes the cache to disk and synchronizes. But we also need kind of a, a platform update cache, essentially. It's almost like, it's not even that. It's not even, I guess, yeah, I can just call it the cache. That's fine. That's what that needs to do. And that is going to be called lazily. What I should probably do is have the cache be, what's the right way to do it? Because you only need to do it one time. Okay, I know what I need to do. This can be not read-only. Because it really needs to do it on all these things. It needs to say, hey, let's make sure the cache is up to date. Only if it doesn't exist, which means we haven't refreshed it from disk. Arso says, has there been talk about getting rid of all the platform calls on the managed side and move it to native so we can simplify managed code? I mean, yeah, that could happen. I think that until we get rid of the reason that we have those is so that we were kind of following the existing pattern, right? Like the reason we have a blend state native is because we have a where is it? I guess it's not going to show it in here. Because we have a open, a blend state GL, whatever the heck that is, states. Blend state DirectX, blend state GL. That's because these are what implement the native code, right? If we just had native, that'd be fine, except all these are abandoned, right? So the idea is until we can get rid of the old APIs, the blend state, until we can remove old DirectX 11, old OpenGL, this old web can probably die with the new projects we've announced, because I don't think it serves any purpose. Until we get rid of these platforms or depreciate those platforms enough that we can remove them, we can't really get rid of that. I don't think. The whole point of it was taking advantage of partial classes to implement functions late instead of having like one function that says if OpenGL, here's a bunch of code. If DirectX 11, here's a bunch of code. That was just too chaotic. And it worked, Originally, MonoGame was written that way, but we kind of went to this partial class method because it just cleans things up. When you can just say, "Oh, here's the DirectX implementation. Here's the OpenGL implementation." There isn't a bunch of if-defs in here for different platforms, especially when we got to consoles where we couldn't put it in a big if-def. We need the partial classes help because I can have a graphics capabilities dot, PlayStation 5 dot. CS, and it can implement it separately there. But with native, we're going to end up having one native thing. Once we get rid of these, we could, in theory, get rid of that abstraction, and the code could directly call the native APIs. Until then, I think this is kind of where we're stuck. All right, so we're doing this, guys. I'm doing it inconsistently, huh? If you actually have a cache, then commit it. Right, so with that, kind of have a rough API written. I don't think we need this anymore. Yeah. Does any of this build? This is going to be a repeat, like it's always opening file for that. It does make you wonder whether we should change that to just read file, write file, and provide the options we want for this. Aristotle says that working on native OpenGL side, there's parts where there's behavior on desktop shell that calls a platform class, but I have to if directive it out for native specifically. Yeah, I'm not sure what cases that is, but I mean, there have been places where people have worked around things or have avoided stuff. It's like, it's simpler just add if def here to be done with it. So people have taken shortcuts for sure. But for the most part, the platform abstraction has worked really well for us. All right, so this in theory should sort of work. The only thing that it isn't doing is, accessing stuff off disk. So stuff like this is no longer used. Platform get file names is no longer used. File names is no longer used. Platform get directory names, platform exists. All these platform implementations can go away. The trick here is going to be how do we fill in the cache in a way that's efficient for this I'm still not sure of. So some of this stuff can go away too. We're not going to be doing that. This we might be doing because we might need this specifically, right? And this we might be doing because writing to disk, we need to be able to do that. We also need to be able to delete a file. We don't need to check for directory existence, but we need to be able to delete a directory. It depends on how this cache is going to work. So the problem is we're going to have this cache. I can't just pass this cache object down to C# code or to native code. As much as I'd like to, there's not an easy way to do that. I don't want to pack it into some weird structure. I mean, I could give it an array of this data potentially, but that seems like a lot. It seems better that we can keep this API more contained to what we need, which is opening, reading the content of a file, saving the content of a file, deleting a file, creating a directory, deleting a directory. Then the C# code can basically call these individually, do the work. The only thing that's missing here is checking to see, is basically enumeration, getting a list of files. That's the thing that we don't have, is an enumeration. J Mix Games, how are we all doing this evening? Fine. Just working through this on storage stuff. I know I'm out of water. So yeah, it's how we do the enumeration. Because technically what needs to happen here, let's say for this, it's going to first create the cache object. Oh. Then I need to basically query the native platform. So I need to kind of do like storage contain, well, actually, what is it? I need an enumeration, basically. It's like I need to say like, it's almost like enumerate container, you pass in the handle, and I need it to return kind of an array of files, basically, of file names, saying these are all the files that exist in the cache. So I can populate the dictionary with everything that exists. And it could be written to be very specific to what we expect here. So yeah, how do I return an array of strings here in a good way? Let's see. Let's see if Claude has a simple answer for us. I just hate marshalling strings. It sucks. Especially a bunch of them. And I'd hate to make like a million calls to get this, even though it's a one-time thing. So, I mean, I could treat it like an enumerator, where I mean, we do something like this in other places. Actually, I don't have to free them. They can be held by the native class, and it can free them whenever it feels like, knowing that it's going to be, it could just return that content, or just keep track of its own thing, so it can always be asked again. So yeah, maybe that's what I want to do, is I want to just return this, but I have to do a bunch of string marshalling, which sucks.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
It's a one-time hit on that crossover between native and that, and only one time when you open the container. Every other time, it's just going to be, it knows what it's doing. It shouldn't be, replaced under the hood. That shouldn't happen on any platform. Yeah, maybe that's what I need to do. So it's almost like you're passing yeah. Wait, what is it called in here? Yeah, that's what it is. So this is going to be like this. I guess I don't have to call it enumerate. I can say enumerate. It needs to be an enumerate container. I mean, these are kind of breaking the rules there, but say content. It needs to return a size, doesn't it? And it returns the count. Let's do it that way. Match up what we're doing in the other ones. This is going to be no. Actually, no, it should be car, right? That's what I was thinking it should be. Yeah, maybe that's what it should be. It's car. Forget. Yeah, because it's going to be easier for it. Yeah, let's do that. So it's going to be no, it can't be that because it's yeah, we don't want to necessarily make it, you know, wide character. Yeah. We'll see where this goes. Oh yeah, because it's going to be it's going to be that, I think, is actually what it's going to be. Yeah. Oh. I guess it can. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I can do this or ref, but it's really this is fine. Oh. So once we have that, then because we're going to use Marshall. UTF-8 should be safe, I think. Is UTF-8 not? Finks 295. Hello. I think that's what I want to do. I'm annoyed by the fact that I had to do that cast. Am I doing that right? This is already a pointer. I think I'm off there by 1. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, this is off by 1. That's already a pointer, so, and this is the array, and this is a reference, so I think that's going to solve it. Okay. So that converts the path. Then if path ends with, that's a directory. So for that, I have to do because it doesn't need anything else for anything else there, huh? Yeah, let's do that. So the thing that's missing now is that this enumerates all that stuff and sets up the cache, but it does not give me the content. So I need to do a little bit of work there as well. Why is it dumber than normal? This is going to be a little tricky as well. Because it's going to return. Hell, I was wondering where these guys were at. Always blocking Streambo. Here we need to get the file content and I need to return that from native code. This is where it's going to do file load, essentially. But it's going to return a byte array that needs to be then freed. Because I can't, I'm going to have to duplicate it. So I don't like the idea of doing that. I hate having to make two calls, say, hey, file load, give me the size of the file, and then I'm going to allocate a byte array, and then I'm going to pass it to you, then you load the content into it. I hate a double call like that. It's either a double call or it is, it's either a double call or we have to deal with copying the data when we're done, which kind of sucks. Let's do the commit real quick, just to get things figured out. And one of the things that the commit is trying to guarantee that it writes everything and does not lose anything in the process. So that's going to be a tricky thing for us to ensure. I mean, on platforms that do have a commit, yeah. I mean, we're trying to guarantee that everything we write is done in one block, right? So we need to be able to ensure that this code is not going to, if the power shuts off in the middle of it, that it can't be partially written. Now, on some platforms, we can guarantee that easily because some platforms, you have to call a native call for committing. And until you call that native call to commit, it doesn't actually do anything. So that's the easy case. The hard case is platforms that do not have that protection. If what we do is call this individually, nothing keeps it from committing other than if it's a dance between the native code or the C# and the native code, right? The C# and the native code do something like the C# would say, here's a file to write to disk, here's a file to write to disk, here's a file to write to disk, here's directory to delete. It's almost like you're passing the cache down. I mean, how would it do it? How would it actually do it on disk? I guess the only way to do it would be to back up the original. No, I can't do that either. I mean, it makes it hard to guarantee that. It makes it very hard to guarantee it. I mean, it's already sort of safer because everything's in memory, nothing's going to crash, but you could literally lose power in the middle of it. Just the question is what's the best way to guarantee that kind of thing with a complex write, right? Because you could be deleting a directory and writing a file and deleting a file and writing and creating a directory, and all those things need to happen. I guess on PC, the way to do it would be to write a new temporary container, right? You write a secondary container object. That's kind of like writing the entire container. That kind of sucks. But you could. You can either write the whole container or it could. Yeah, could it do that? I guess it could. I mean, it could be that on Windows there's not a really good way to guarantee that in an absolute way. I need to do a little research on the right way to do that. I mean, we're definitely going to have a commit call here, regardless of this. it'll be up to the native platform to deal with what that commit is going to be. So that will be there, and and that will definitely be there. Oh, this just reminded me what's wrong with. It's funny how my mind works. It just reminded me that I named this blob. Always name the variable in these things pair, because it's what it is, the key value pair. Blob doesn't make sense because it's not the type. Anyways, that's how my brain works. Looking at that made me think, oh wait, I did that wrong. Right, so if we do this in the native way, or the naive way here, we're basically going to go through every item in the cache, pair also dirty continue. Damn it. Otherwise, we need to know what to do if would be the delete path. That's better. It's deleted if the blob is a directory. Now I need to do mg. I mean, there'll be a whole other thing we need to deal with here, which is what happens if the directory is not empty. Whole other problem. I guess we're going to assume that that's going to prune everything, but we haven't pruned everything. The directory is deleted and there's files in there that are modified. I guess directory deletion wins. Anything that's in this directory, that's something we're not doing, like we should probably do that, right? Like in here, this is where it starts to get really complex. If create directory, if create file, no, that's the wrong one. Delete directory. This has to basically find all files and find all final entries in this directory and remove the cache, because we have to clear everything out of there, right? Any files, folders that are within that path, which really, if we normalize everything correctly, is pretty easy, actually. So let's just do it. fingers are not working today. Oh, this is gonna be a pain in the ass. Oh, I know how to deal with it. Yeah. Yeah, what I want to do is if the pair key starts with path, actually, I like to invert things. Otherwise, we're going to take the pair, the value, and make it null. Wait, can I not do that? I guess I need to do. I don't know if this feels like I'm doing something bad. I don't know if it's going to like me doing that. We'll find out, I guess. Wait, I can't do that? Oh. I always intended that to be a class. Key search with path, then remove everything else. This will be easier. And then we're going to do that's not a nice way to do that either. Man, I hate doing that. Ugh, gross. I'm gonna do the lazy thing for right now. I hate it doing this way. There must be a better way to do that, right? Oh, wait. Oh, wait, yeah, well, that didn't do anything. Yeah, duh. See what Google thinks. I wonder. Is that true? I don't know if I trust it. Plus, if you're not running on modern.net, then it's not great. Ah, I see. That's what it thinks. That's not a bad way to deal with it. I mean, toList actually allocates a list, but at least then you can remove things from the keys, you know. Yeah, it's a cleaner way, right? Because then let's What's the easy way to... I just call it entry, whatever. I panicked. I didn't know what to call it. Now I can actually do cache remove. I can just call it key. So at least this cleans this up. But it also brings up another thing here that I kind of need to do the directory work first, then the file work. You know, even though there's a whole question like, what if I hit create? What if I create a file and the directory doesn't exist? Should we allow that? If you create file and you have a path in there, path doesn't exist, should I fail? You know, if I want to emulate a file system, I should. Whole other question. Two good questions of how that should behave. But what it's saying is that we might need to do the directories first, because that builds the structure, and then write the files so that everything balances out. Yeah, probably. Yeah, let's plan on doing that. I need to do the same thing here. No, I can't do it that way though. I'm not just going through the keys, I'm going through the values. I'll have to do cleanup on everything at the end. Have to, you know, well, I mean, this kind of stuff would be a pain in the ass no matter which language we're working with. But it's a pain in the ass here too. So yeah, run out of time here, so I need to wrap up. But need to double check into that. Whatever technique we use there, we should be able to apply it to every platform, technically. I'm sure there's a technique. So process the directories. So if it's a deleted directory, I mean it is a directory, then delete the directory. I need to know that this needs to be removed. I guess I can take care of that later. If it's dirty and it's not deleted, then it means it's creating it. So same thing. We want to keep our cache fresh, so we'll have to clean up the cache later. This is what has to happen. It's going to be painful. It's going to be the painful cleanup, or I have to just keep track of keys to destroy. Here's where we have to get the I can't do that, I don't think. I think that only works if it was created from something, I think. There might be a more efficient way, but we don't need to worry about efficiency right now. So to do that, I always forget how you do that. No. I guess I have to do like fixed, is that right? Now, how do I do that? I mean, I guess I can do that, but I thought there was a cleaner way of doing that. So saves and deletes files, then I basically need to do my cleanup. I can do my commit first, I guess. I mean, all this is like, I wish I could pass this all down to the native layer. It really does make me wonder whether I should keep it. I should keep like an array of structures to this data and then let the native layer work with that. But it's such a pain in the ass to maintain. And really, there shouldn't be a lot of work here. I'd rather keep this in C# where it can be reused. And maybe this should go up a higher level. But the commit and reading the cache, those are kind of might be very tied to the platform. So it could be that each platform needs to handle that itself. I'm not sure yet. just going to do this and call it a day. Yeah, this is what I do. If deleted, we have a dirty flag on it, which doesn't matter if it was dirty or not. And then we just need to go through and remove these. All right, so let's call it on this. Kind of gone through enough for today, I think. My mind's kind of melting. So, Jamie seems to say, so the new container API is only for the new native platforms, or are we making it available everywhere? Yeah, we're going to make it available everywhere. I mean, I'm kind of writing against one right now because I need to write against something to start with. I can't just write it for everything all at once. I mean, I could write it for like GL or something, or Vulkan to begin with, or like one of the other platforms, but I chose to kind of do it against the native API first. But it's going to be everywhere. That's the plan. You know, I'm going to try to keep the code that's in the native side as minimal as possible, so that as much as possible is shared with the common stuff. But how I have it implemented, most of the stuff is at the common layer at this point. But it still needs a lot more beating on here. Like, I feel like there's a lot of holes in places. Like it needs more as far as things, as far as protecting against, people reading or writing to a read-only file. People that say I'm going to write to a file, I want to open a file for writing, but they don't write to it. They just read to it, and it like marking that as dirty when it shouldn't. There's things like that. It probably needs to do better. I don't know if we should continue with the farce of throwing exceptions for file not found and, things like that when we know we don't have to throw an exception. We could do something less, less disruptive, but I guess C# kind of wants you to do those things. So yeah, still more to work on there, but we're getting closer to something. I'll have to do some research on the right way is to, if you have just a raw file system, what's the right way to commit a bunch of changes without breaking anything, and see what other techniques have come up with before. I mean, I basically know how it works for things like, for things with some platforms, what they do is they have two different, folders. They have and I guess this is the technique, is they have the actual content, and then they have kind of like a separate folder that is the changes in progress content, and they swap them, when or basically replace one with the other once it's done committed. And that might be the way to do it. It does mean that you have to have kind of double the storage to do that. And it is, that's basically what we have to do if you're going to support, committing it like that and guarantee that it's not going to corrupt your files. You kind of have to do it that way, so that as long as you get that last rename in place, that you don't lose anything. I mean, that's the trick, is being able to rename it or move it and ensure that makes it work without losing anything. So that has to be the atomic operation at the end. And if it dies before the rename, then yeah, you lost the save data you were doing, but you didn't corrupt the previous save data, which is fine. I don't think there's a requirement for us to save the previous save, the data that was corrupted by a shutdown or something. So yeah, that might probably be the implementation we need, and each platform will have to deal with the file operations regarding that stuff on its own. But because again, some platforms might have a native commit method that we can depend on. But at least for PC, we want to have a good system that works in a reasonable way. And then there's still we haven't answered the questions about on PC, like, where do these files get stored? Do we continue with XNAs design, or do we do something different? You know, what do modern games do that are not using XNA? You know, should we obey those? You know, so there's a lot of questions to ask. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for watching. Hopefully it looks like we've gotten a little further. As always, follow us on Twitch and YouTube. I haven't checked in a while to see what our YouTube stats look like. It's been a little bit. Yeah, we're getting halfway there to 8K subscribers, which is kind of disappointing. You know, we've had this YouTube channel forever now. When did we open this channel? In 2012 was when that channel was opened. So yeah, I mean, we should have a lot more subscribers, but we just never focused on YouTube. But our views are up, and you know, our subscriber count is moving up, and that's good. As long as we continue to kind of push MonoGame forward, I think that'll improve. So I'm not too worried about that. What's our most popular video? My old showcase video. That's the most popular. How about the most popular of the modern day? The 2D starter kit stuff. So yeah, you know, follow us on Twitch and YouTube. That helps. I think Twitch, we're still our subscriber count is pretty low still, I think. Let's see, where are we at? Hey, one person's watching on Twitch. I appreciate it. I'm getting that one person. We have 124 subscribers still, you know. We just need 6 more followers for our next goal. So yeah, we're getting there. And then also, you know, if you have the means, go for it. No problem, dude. If you have the means, donating to MonoGame helps us monetary. The monetary donations help a lot because it allows us to, you know, for us to be able to focus on doing this stuff. Right now, it's myself, Dom, and Simon working part-time on the framework, with Iris Turtle putting a ton of time into things, you know, which is awesome. And community members that have been adding a lot of good stuff lately. You know, that's been great. But money helps us be able to continue to fund the project and move things forward. Also, just your volunteering, you know, submitting bug reports, testing things, you know, giving us feedback on issues. We should have a roadmap up here soon, and that roadmap is going to link our milestones and some of the things we're going to be working on. And getting feedback on those things early so we can design them the right way is helpful as well. And that's, to me, that's a donation. So I appreciate it. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye.